The northern wind howled, whipping snowflakes against the green train windows with sharp crackling sounds. The carriage was packed full of returning educated youths and the families of soldiers. Every soldier in uniform was wrapped tightly in a thick cotton coat, and the white vapor of their breath drifted in the frigid air like mist. I leaned against the hard metal wall of the carriage. A violent jolt shook me awake and a stabbing pain split through my head. Countless images exploded in my mind all at once. Did you hear? This time the return policy is really lenient. The soldiers' families even get priority job placements. Two young women with braids whispered beside me, clutching slips of paper stamped with return permits. Really? That's wonderful. My fiancé is a platoon leader. If I can get a priority placement, maybe I can work at a neighborhood factory. Exactly, but I heard the army's gotten really strict lately, especially about conduct. If someone cheats while married, it doesn't just hurt their promotion chances. They'll actually be disciplined. Their words were like a key, suddenly unlocking the floodgates of my memory. I looked down at my hands, slender, smooth, and free of calluses, not the rough, cracked hands from my previous life, worn from endless farm work and house chores. I reached toward my chest. A worn cloth pouch was pressed tightly against my heart. Inside was something stiff, that photo I had found in my previous life, the one of Daniel Chen and Vivian Lee smiling intimately in each other's arms. I had been reborn into the winter of 1978, the very day I, Lisa, was returning from the countryside. Memories from my past life surged back like a flood. 3 years ago, Daniel, my husband, had been promoted. The regiment leader claimed that soldiers' wives needed rural re-education, so he sent me and our 2-year-old son to the countryside. For 3 years, I farmed, fed pigs, mended clothes, working myself nearly to death. Daniel only sent money occasionally, and he came home so rarely I could count the visits on one hand. Last winter, when I happened to return to the city for errands, I saw him, his arm wrapped around a young woman buying fabric at the co-op. That woman was his subordinate sister, Vivian Lee. She had crescent-shaped eyes when she smiled, and she wore a shiny dacron blouse, the exact style I had begged him for half a year to buy me. I rushed over and confronted him, but he said she was just a relative helping him choose fabric. Then he accused me of being petty and unreasonable. Later, I found out the truth. They had been together for a long time. After I returned from the countryside, I tried desperately to win him back. I took care of every chore in the house, gave up the job opportunity the commune had offered me. All because I thought, he's my child's father. I believed that if I just worked hard enough, he would eventually come back to me. But in the end, he handed me a cold divorce certificate issued by the army and said flatly, "We're just not compatible, Lisa. I can't live like this anymore." When I refused to sign, he fought me for custody of our son. He went to the regiment, the commune, everywhere, claiming I had been in the countryside too long, that I'd grown withdrawn and unfit to raise a child. In the end, I lost everything. Not only custody, but even the 50 yuan in compensation he had promised. I could only watch as Daniel and Vivian used my money to build their new home and watch my son call another woman mom. The thought made my nails dig deep into my palms. The sharp pain brought clarity. This time, I will never make the same mistake again. "Comrade, are you all right? You look so pale," one of the young women asked with concern. I shook my head and forced a small smile. "I'm fine, just a little carsick." I clutched the cloth pouch tightly against my chest. The photo inside felt as heavy as lead. It was my weapon in this life, the key to making Daniel Chen and Vivian Lee pay the price they owed. The train slowly rolled into the city. In the distance, tall buildings and factory chimneys emerged through the haze. The carriage came alive with chatter, people packing their belongings, congratulating one another. But my heart remained cold as ice. I knew Daniel would be waiting at the station, just like before, holding that divorce certificate in his hand. But this time, I wouldn't cry. I would never beg again. This time I would sign without hesitation, then take everything that belonged to me and make them pay the most painful price for their betrayal and selfishness. The train finally came to a stop. The doors opened and a blast of icy wind carrying tiny bits of snow rushed in. I followed the crowd slowly down the steps and onto the platform. In one glance, I saw Daniel Chen standing at the far corner. He was dressed in a crisp military uniform, the insignia of a regimental commander gleaming on his shoulders. His hair was combed neatly, not a strand out of place. There was no expression on his face. It was as if he hadn't come to meet his wife, but a stranger. When he saw me walking toward him, he didn't ask if I was tired or how our child was doing. Instead, he pulled a neatly folded piece of paper from his pocket and held it out to me. "Lisa," he said flatly, "these past 3 years while you were in the countryside, things haven't been working between us. I've had the army issue a divorce certificate. You should sign it." I looked at the paper in his hand. The words divorce certificate were like a knife to the eyes. In my previous life, when I saw that same piece of paper, I had burst into tears and clung to his arm, begging him to reconsider. But now, I simply took it calmly, unfolded it, and glanced over the details. Sure enough, it said he voluntarily gave up custody of our son and would compensate me with 50 yuan. I raised my head and met Daniel's eyes. For a brief moment, a flicker of unease crossed his face. He hadn't expected me to be so calm. Without a word, I pulled a pen from my cloth pouch and neatly signed my name, Lisa Chen. Daniel froze, staring blankly for a few seconds before stammering, "Why you signed it that easily?" I handed the signed certificate back to him, the corners of my mouth curling into a cold smile. "Since you think we can't go on, why should I force it, Commander Chen? But let's make one thing clear. You'd better keep every promise written on that paper." Without another glance at him, I turned and walked toward the military family housing area, clutching the cloth pouch tightly in my arms. The northern wind cut across my face like blades, but my heart felt nothing but fierce satisfaction. From this moment on, my counterattack had officially begun. The red brick path of the housing compound was covered in snow, crunching under my boots. I hugged the pouch close as I walked home. As I turned a corner, I saw Mrs. Zhang standing at her gate, sweeping snow off the steps. The moment she saw me, she dropped her broom and hurried over. "Lisa, you're finally back. I've been waiting for you. You must have suffered in the countryside all these years, haven't you? Where's your little one? Didn't he come with you?" "My son's still in the countryside with my mother for a few days," I said with a polite smile. "Once I settle things here, I'll go bring him back." As I chatted with Mrs. Zhang, I quietly observed her expression. She was known throughout the compound for her warm heart and sharp tongue. In my previous life, it was she who had secretly told me that Daniel often brought Vivian Lee home. That's good," Mrs. Zhang said, squeezing my hand and lowering her voice. "But Lisa, you need to be careful. Lately, I've seen Commander Chen heading out of town a lot with a young woman. Word is, she's his subordinate sister. Her name's Vivian Lee. Not long ago, I even saw him buying maternity clothes for her." My heart skipped a beat. So I'd been right. Vivian was pregnant. That was the real reason Daniel had been in such a rush to divorce me. In my last life, I hadn't learned that Vivian had given birth to a son until half a year after the divorce. I'd foolishly believed they'd only gotten together afterward. But now, I realized the truth. Daniel had been desperate to give Vivian and her child a legitimate name and status. "Really? Maybe she's just a relative," I said lightly, feigning ignorance so as not to reveal my hand too soon. "Daniel never mentioned anything about that to me." Mrs. Zhang pursed her lips, clearly unconvinced. "A relative? Oh, please. No relative gets that kind of attention. I saw that girl leave his place the other day, and Daniel was holding her by the waist. Looked exactly like a couple. And now he asks for a divorce the minute you return? Something's definitely fishy here." Just as she finished speaking, I heard footsteps behind me. Turning around, I saw Daniel walking toward us, his expression dark and stiff. Mrs. Zhang's smile froze as the cold air thickened between us. "Watch what you say," Daniel snapped. "You can joke about food, but not about people. Vivian and I are just distant relatives. Don't start nonsense in front of Lisa." Mrs. Zhang wasn't the least bit intimidated when Daniel arrived. She snorted, folding her arms. "Just relatives, huh? You know very well what kind of relatives you are. Lisa followed you to the countryside and suffered for 3 years. You'd better not do her wrong. She shot him a fierce glare before turning on her heel and heading back to her house. Daniel's face turned an ugly shade of red, then pale again, but he didn't argue. He just muttered, "Don't listen to Mrs. Zhang's gossip. Let's go home. There's still a lot for you to unpack." I didn't reply, only followed him silently. The moment we opened the door, a heavy waft of perfume hit me, jasmine, the exact scent Vivian Lee always wore. I'd smelled it countless times on Daniel's clothes in my previous life. On the couch lay a pink knitted sweater, clearly not mine. It was smaller, more delicate, and at the collar there was a faint smudge of lipstick. When Daniel noticed it, his eyes flickered with panic. He rushed over, stuffed the sweater into the crack between the cushions, and stammered, "That belongs to a comrade's wife. They came by recently and forgot it here. I'll return it tomorrow." I watched his pathetic act and couldn't help a cold sneer in my heart. A comrade's wife? Wearing a pink sweater with lipstick on the collar? He must have thought I'd be easy to fool after spending 3 years in the countryside to make up such a ridiculous excuse. "Oh, I see," I said evenly, pretending to believe him. "I'll start unpacking. We have to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow for the divorce paperwork. You should get some rest." Daniel clearly hadn't expected my calmness. He froze, then nodded stiffly. "Right, you do that. I'll be in the study." He hurried away, closing the door behind him. I stood there watching the study door for a moment before the corner of my lips curved into a cold smile. Instead of unpacking, I took out the photo from my bag. In the picture, Daniel Chen was holding Vivian Lee close under the willow trees on the outskirts of the city. Vivian wore a floral dress, her belly slightly rounded, her smile bright and radiant. This was the same photo I had found in Daniel's drawer in my past life. Back then, he'd insisted it was taken by a friend as a joke. Now it was clear, Vivian had already been pregnant at that time. I put the photo back in my bag, locked it inside the dresser drawer, then went to the couch and carefully folded the pink sweater, placing it into a plastic bag. This was evidence, too. If Daniel ever tried to deny his affair or fight for custody of the child, these would be my weapons. After everything was neatly put away, I lay down, but sleep wouldn't come. Memories of the humiliation and anger from my previous life mixed with the cold determination of this one. I knew that getting the divorce certificate tomorrow was only the first step. After that, I'd claim the 50 yuan compensation, fight for my child's custody, and make both Daniel Chen and Vivian Lee pay for their betrayal. The next morning, Daniel and I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau together. He didn't say a single word on the way, his face as dark as a storm cloud. When the clerk verified our documents, he asked, "Comrade Chen, you voluntarily give up custody of the child and will compensate the wife 50 yuan, correct?" Daniel hesitated, glanced at me, then nodded. "Yes." The clerk turned to me. "Comrade Lisa, you agree to the divorce and accept custody of the child along with the 50 yuan compensation?" "Yes," I said firmly, without the slightest hesitation. When the divorce certificate was finally handed to me, the red cover gleaming under the light, I couldn't help smiling as I read the words on it, "Divorce Certificate." I thought of all the pain and humiliation I'd suffered after Daniel abandoned me in my past life, and the smoothness of everything this time around made me laugh out loud before I could stop myself. "Girl, don't laugh so loud. You'll give yourself away," my mother whispered, tugging at my sleeve. She'd followed me that morning, worried I might lose control of my emotions. Sure enough, Daniel turned to look at me, confusion flickering in his eyes. "What are you laughing at?" I quickly pretended to rub my eyes and forced out, "Oh, it's nothing. Just the wind got in my eyes and it tickled." I couldn't help laughing. Daniel Chen frowned, but didn't press the question. He turned and walked away, saying, "I still have things to do. I'll go first. I'll give you the compensation in a few days." Watching his hurried back as he left, I smiled coldly inside. "In a few days," he said. He probably planned to stall, maybe even dodge the payment. No matter, I had plenty of ways to make him hand the money over. My mother came up beside me and took my hand. Lisa, you've been wronged, but it's all right. After the divorce, the two of us can live well on our own. I nodded and smiled. Mom, I'm not wronged. I actually feel relieved. From now on, we won't have to read his face anymore. With that, my mother and I walked out of the civil affairs office together. The sun warmed our faces, and I knew a new life was beginning. We walked home along the snowy street, sunlight filtering through the bare branches and casting mottled shadows on the snow. I clenched the divorce certificate's red hard cover in my palm until it hurt, but inside I felt like a 1,000-pound burden had been lifted. That humiliating marriage that had ground me into the dust in my last life had finally ended in this life. Lisa, Daniel said he'd give the compensation in a few days, but I feel like he's going to weasel out. My mother said, her steps heavy beside me. Why don't we go ask him for it now, so we don't have to worry later? I shook my head and carefully slipped the certificate into my bag. Don't rush, Mom. Right now he's probably thinking about Vivian Lee. If we go to him now, he'll think we're being difficult and might just dodge the payment. Let's go home first. If there's no news after a couple days, then we can take it up with the regiment. I had already thought it through. With the divorce certificate and the other evidence, Daniel Chen wouldn't be able to get away with shirking his obligations. When we reached the housing compound and stepped into the stairwell, I heard a woman's laughter from upstairs, sharp and piercing. It was Vivian Lee's voice. My mother and I exchanged a look and slowed our steps, moving quietly upward. The sound was coming from Daniel's apartment next door. Our two homes were separated by only a single wall, so everything came through clearly. Daniel, you really divorced her? When can I move in? My belly is getting so big. If I keep staying at my brother's, it's not right, Vivian cooed childishly. Soon, soon. After I tidy up the house, you can move in. Daniel's voice was several degrees softer than usual. I hadn't received the compensation yet. I intended to delay a few days, and maybe he'd simply forget. Hearing this, my mother nearly stormed to the door in anger, but I grabbed her arm and shook my head, signaling her not to act on impulse. I took out the small notebook and pen I had prepared and wrote down Daniel's words, every single sentence. That would be another piece of evidence proving he was already planning to renege on the compensation. What if he comes to ask you for the child? Vivian's voice threaded with worry. Let him try, Daniel scoffed, and his voice hardened. She's a divorced woman with no job and no income and a child to look after. What can she do to me? Besides, I know plenty of people in the regiment. Even if she goes complaining, I can handle it. I laughed coldly inside. Did he really think I was still the timid, powerless Lisa from my last life who would swallow everything and keep quiet? Not this time. I wasn't just going to get the compensation, I was going to make him pay for that smug line. My mother and I quietly slipped back down the stairs and returned home. As soon as we stepped inside, my mother couldn't hold back and slammed her hand on the table. That Daniel Chen is outrageous. Cheating and now trying to stiff you on the compensation? That's just unforgivable. I took the photo and the pink knit sweater from the cloth pouch and laid them on the table. Mom, look. This is the photo I found in Daniel's drawer in my previous life. Vivian was already pregnant then. And this sweater I found on Daniel's sofa. It even has a lipstick mark. It's definitely Vivian's. These are all evidence. When we go to the regiment, we'll bring these out and have them clear things up properly. My mother picked up the photo, hands shaking with anger as she stared at the intimate pair. That bastard, she spat. You suffered for 3 years in the countryside with him, and he's out here making another woman pregnant. I have to go tell Mrs. Zhang and the others, so everyone knows what he's really like. Don't rush, Mom, I pulled her back. Now isn't the time. Let's wait a few days and see if Daniel comes forward with the compensation. If he doesn't, then we'll take the evidence to the regiment and have Mrs. Zhang and the others speak for us. That will be more effective. I knew the most important thing right now was to keep our heads and act step by step, so Daniel Chen and Vivian Lee would have nowhere to hide. Over the next few days, I tidied the house while watching Daniel's movements. Every day I saw Vivian coming to his place with her belly showing. Sometimes Daniel would escort her to the co-op to buy things, carrying bags of nutritional supplements bought with his military allowance, while he hadn't even mentioned the compensation to me. One afternoon, I was sewing at home when someone knocked on the door. I assumed Daniel had finally come with the money, but when I opened it, it was Vivian standing there in a newly bought floral padded coat, her pregnancy obvious, carrying a fruit basket and wearing a false saccharine smile. "Sister Lisa, I'm Vivian. I heard you divorced, so I came to see you." Nausea churned in my stomach, but I kept my face calm. "No, thanks. I'm fine. You should go back. Sister Lisa, don't be so cold." Vivian pushed my hand aside and stepped into the room. "I know you don't feel well about this, but matters of the heart can't be forced. You and Daniel just aren't right for each other. He and I truly love each other," she said, deliberately rubbing her belly. "I'm carrying Daniel's child and I'll take good care of him and give him a complete family." Watching her smug expression, I couldn't help a cold laugh. "Vivian, don't get too cocky. Do you really think Daniel loves you? He only wants to give the child in your belly a legitimate status. And you're spending Daniel's allowance on supplements while forgetting he still owes me 50 yuan in compensation. That money is for me and our child's living expenses. Do you think you can spend it without a care?" Vivian's face changed instantly. Panic flashed in her eyes. I don't know any compensation," she stammered. "Don't talk nonsense. If you think I'm lying, you can ask Daniel." I moved to the door in a manner that made it clear the visit was over. "Please leave. You're not welcome here and don't come again. We don't need the embarrassment." Faced with my resolute tone and afraid I'd really go to Daniel to demand the money, Vivian had no choice but to leave. The next day, the laundry room in the compound was unusually busy. I carried the pile of dirty clothes I'd been saving for days and went over. As soon as I stepped inside, I heard Mrs. Zhang and Sister Li talking. Of course, their conversation circled right back to Daniel Chen and Vivian Li. "Did you see? Yesterday, Commander Chen went to the co-op with Vivian again, bought 2 cans of malted milk and a big piece of floral cloth, saying he'll make little clothes for the baby," Sister Li said, wringing water from a garment so quietly, her voice low but loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Who in our compound doesn't know the commander's allowance is only a few dozen yuan a month, yet he's dragging his feet on Lisa's compensation? Where's that money gone?" Mrs. Zhang, who was hanging sheets on the line, chimed in. "Exactly. The day before yesterday, I saw Vivian leaving Commander Chen's place with her belly sticking out. He had to help her walk. She looked more pampered than a woman who just gave birth. When Lisa was out in the countryside farming with the child, he never showed this kind of care." I carried the wash basin over and deliberately sighed before dropping the dirty clothes into the tub. "Mrs. Zhang, Sister Li, don't say it like that. Maybe Chen really has difficulties," I said as I rubbed soap into the clothes, pretending to be casual but adding without thinking. "A few days ago, I asked around at the commune about return jobs and heard Daniel asked people to arrange a priority placement for Vivian, saying she's pregnant and needs a stable job to support her pregnancy. Meanwhile, they know I have no income with a child." The laundry room fell silent the moment those words left my mouth. Sister Wang stopped wringing clothes and looked at me. "Lisa, are you sure? He divorced you and then helps his mistress get a job? That's just wrong." "Yeah," Sister Li echoed immediately. "The return policy clearly says families should be prioritized. You're the legitimate military family. What's Vivian got to do with priority? She's a homewrecker." I put on an aggrieved expression, working the soap to make bubbles. "I don't even know if every word is true. I just happened to overhear it. I'm not trying to steal a job. It's just that with a child and no income, it's hard. Daniel promised 50 yuan compensation and he still hasn't given it." "What compensation?" Mrs. Zhang pressed forward, eyes wide with surprise. "He divorced you and promised compensation?" I pulled the divorce certificate from my bag, opened it, and showed them the page. "Look, right here. He voluntarily gives up custody and compensates me 50 yuan, signed and sealed. But now he's spending the money on Vivian. When I ask him, he says the regiment's funds are tight, wait until next month. We've already been waiting nearly half a month. the laundry room erupted. Sister Wang slammed the washboard furious. Daniel Chen is unbelievable, written in black and white, and he still wants to weasel out. If this gets back to the regiment, do you think he can still keep his post? We have to stand up for Lisa. Sister Lee set down her work. I'll talk to the other women and make sure everyone knows his real face. If he's trying to take a job from Vivian, we'll let the commune officials hear about it. Justice will prevail. I grabbed Sister Lee's arm. Don't trouble everyone, Sister Lee. What if Daniel holds a grudge against everyone? That wouldn't be good. I said it aloud, but inside I knew the gossip had already been sparked. It only needed fuel to spread. Sure enough, that afternoon the rumors ran through the compound. I stood on my balcony hanging laundry and could hear little groups of military families below, whispering and commenting. Have you heard? Commander Chen not only cheated during his marriage and got Vivian pregnant, he's also stiffing Lisa on the compensation and now wants to help the mistress get a job. If he succeeds, what justice will we have left as proper military families? No way. We should bring this up at the next family meeting with the political commissar, someone suggested. I realized Daniel Chen had probably heard the stir of talk already. That night, when Daniel came back, his face was so dark it looked like water could drip from it. As he passed my door, his steps faltered, as if he wanted to say something, but when he noticed the strange looks from the neighbors around, he lowered his head and hurried home, not even daring to slam the door. The next morning, I went to the commune to submit my child's registration papers. Just as I reached the entrance, I saw Daniel Chen and Vivian Lee coming out. Vivian had her arm looped around his, her face glowing with satisfaction. Daniel was holding a sheet of paper, probably a job application. When she saw me, Vivian's smile froze for a moment. Then she deliberately lifted her belly and raised her voice. Daniel, let's go home. I'm not feeling well. I need to rest. Daniel didn't even look at me. He pulled her along, trying to leave, but I stepped forward and blocked their way. Holding up the divorce certificate in my hand, I said evenly, Commander Chen, shouldn't we talk about the compensation? I have no objection to you helping Vivian apply for a job, but don't forget the divorce certificate clearly states you owe me 50 yuan. That money is for me and our child's living expenses. You can't spend your army allowance buying supplements for your mistress while leaving us to starve, can you? People nearby began to stop and stare. Whispers rippled through the crowd and Daniel's face flushed crimson. He tried to push past me, but a commune official stepped forward to stop him. It was the same director I had seen the other day. The director frowned at Daniel. Comrade Chen, the return to city work policy is meant for families in need, especially single mothers with children. They should be given priority. Even if Comrade Vivian Lee has special circumstances, rules are rules. No one should receive special treatment, and as for the 50 yuan compensation written in your divorce certificate, that should be paid on time. That's basic integrity. Daniel stood there speechless, his mouth opening and closing without a word. Finally, he shot me a venomous glare and dragged Vivian away in a hurry. Vivian turned back to look at me once, her eyes full of spite, but she didn't dare say a word. The director watched them leave and shook his head and turned to me. Comrade Lisa, don't worry. The commune will handle your return to work matter fairly. And about the compensation, I'll speak to Comrade Chen personally and make sure he pays you as soon as possible. I thanked him, feeling a rush of relief. The power of public opinion truly worked. Even the commune officials were standing on my side now. It seemed Daniel and Vivian's good days were coming to an end. When I returned to the housing compound, Mrs. Zhang and Sister Lee were already waiting at my door. The moment they saw me, they rushed over. Lisa, how did it go? What did the commune officials say? I told them everything that had happened. Mrs. Zhang slapped her thigh excitedly. That's perfect. That's exactly how you should handle him. Let him see that the women in this compound aren't to be bullied. Sister Lee nodded with a grin. If he dares pick on you again, just tell us. There are plenty of us here. No way we'll let one Daniel Chen walk all over you. Their warmth filled me with a quiet sense of comfort. In my past life, I'd been utterly alone, but in this one, I wasn't fighting by myself anymore. though the commune director had promised to help with the compensation. 5 more days passed and Daniel still hadn't made a move. I went to his place twice. The first time, he said his army allowance hadn't been issued yet. The second time, he simply refused to open the door. Through the peephole, I could see Vivian sitting on the sofa eating malted milk, wearing a new pair of knitted gloves. The fabric was unmistakable. It was the pure wool material I'd seen at the co-op a few days ago, 5 yuan per yard. So much for no allowance. He wasn't short on money. He was just spending it all on his mistress. My mother paced the room furious. We can't wait any longer. We're going straight to the regiment and talking to the political commissar. I don't believe they'd turn a blind eye to such immoral behavior. I clenched the divorce certificate in my hand, then went to the wardrobe and took out the incriminating photo and the pink sweater. I had already made up my mind. Mom, you're right. We're going to the regiment today. Daniel Chen thinks he's protected by his connections in the army? Then let's see just how strict the army's discipline really is. The political commissar's office was on the 3rd floor of the administrative building. As soon as we reached the entrance, we ran into Daniel's subordinate, Staff Officer Wong. When he saw the folder of documents in my hand, his face changed slightly and he quickly stepped forward. Sister Lisa, you're here to see the commissar? Why don't I go talk to Commander Chen first? Maybe we can handle this privately. Privately? I gave a cold laugh. I've tried to handle it privately 3 times already. He either hides or dodges responsibility. Now it's his turn to explain himself to the regiment. Wong tried to block me again, but Mrs. Zhang suddenly appeared out of nowhere, pushing him aside. Lisa's here to report a situation. You're just a subordinate. Don't stand in the way. If Daniel Chen hasn't done anything wrong, what's he afraid of meeting the commissar for? Mrs. Zhang, worried I'd be outnumbered, had called Sister Li and a few other military wives to come along. They all crowded around me now, speaking up one after another in my defense. Staff Officer Wong realized he couldn't stop us and reluctantly stepped aside. When we knocked on the commissar's office door, he was reading a document. Seeing me walk in with several women and a pile of materials, he immediately put down his pen. Comrade Lisa, what's the matter? Sit down and tell me slowly. I placed the divorce certificate, the photo, and the pink sweater neatly on his desk. Taking a deep breath, I told him everything from beginning to end. Commissar, Daniel Chen had an affair with Vivian Li while we were still married and got her pregnant. The day after I returned from the countryside, he forced me to divorce him and promised to compensate me 50 yuan. But now he's spending all his army allowance buying Vivian supplements and new clothes while refusing to pay what he owes. He even tried to pull strings with the commune to get her a job, completely ignoring me and our child's survival. Mrs. Zhang quickly added, Commissar, we can all testify. Vivian comes to Daniel's place every day with her big belly and he even accompanies her to buy maternity clothes, while Lisa can barely afford her child's tuition. Sister Li produced a small sheet of paper. These are signatures from over 10 military wives in our housing compound. We all agree Daniel Chen's conduct is disgraceful. The commissar picked up the photo, his expression darkening as he looked at the intimate couple. Then he flipped through the divorce certificate and his face grew even heavier. Finally, he picked up the phone and told his orderly to summon Daniel Chen immediately. 10 minutes later, Daniel rushed in. The moment he saw the room full of people and the evidence laid out on the desk, his face went pale. Commissar, you wanted to see me? The commissar threw the photo in front of him, his voice sharp. Look at this. You had an affair during your marriage, forced your wife into divorce, refused to pay compensation, and even tried to use your position to secure a job for your mistress. Is this the behavior of a regiment commander? What happened to the discipline and integrity the army taught you? Have you forgotten everything? Daniel scrambled to pick up the photo, his hands trembling. Commissar, it's not what it looks like. Vivian and I are just relatives. This photo is a misunderstanding. I took out the pink sweater and laid it on the table. Then this woman's sweater with lipstick on the collar, is that also your relatives? And what about the allowance you claimed hadn't been issued? If that's true, how is Vivian drinking malted milk every day and wearing pure wool gloves? Are you saying those weren't bought with your allowance? Daniel's defense stuck in his throat. His face went from white to red to a deep bruised purple. The commissar stared at him, shaking his head in disappointment. Daniel Chen, I truly didn't expect this from you. The army has zero tolerance for misconduct of this kind. From today onward, your position as regiment commander is suspended. You will write a full self-criticism and submit it immediately. And one more thing, before the day is over, you are to pay Comrade Lisa the 50 yuan compensation in full. If I hear any more gossip about you and Vivian Lee, the commissar said sternly, the army will take further disciplinary action. Your suspension is already in effect. Daniel Chen staggered back a step, disbelief written all over his face. Commissar, I can't be suspended. I'm about to be promoted. Please, give me one more chance, just one more. The commissar cut him off coldly. When you forced Lisa to divorce you, did you think about giving her a chance? When you refused to pay the compensation, did you think about giving your child a chance? It's too late to talk about chances now. Daniel opened his mouth to argue, but before he could speak, the orderly entered and whispered something in the commissar's ear. The commissar nodded, then looked back at Daniel. Your subordinate, Captain Lee, Vivian's brother, has just submitted his resignation. He said he's too ashamed to stay in the unit any longer. You see what you've done? You haven't just ruined your own career, you've dragged others down with you. Daniel's face drained of all color. He sank into a chair, unable to utter another word. That afternoon, he brought the 50 yuan compensation to my home. He set the money on the table, head bowed, his voice hoarse. Lisa, I'm sorry. I know I was wrong. Could you please talk to the commissar for me? Ask him to lift the suspension? I took the money, tucked it away carefully, and looked him straight in the eyes. Daniel, your mistake isn't that you delayed the payment or that you got suspended. Your mistake is betraying your marriage and shirking your responsibility. These consequences are yours alone. No one can save you from them. Daniel saw the resolve in my eyes and realized there was no point in begging. Shoulders slumped, he turned and left in silence. After he was gone, my mother picked up the 50 yuan, tears of relief welling in her eyes. Lisa, we finally got it. We'll never have to bow to him again. I nodded, but inside, I knew this was only the beginning. Daniel Chen and Vivian Lee hadn't faced the real consequences yet. On the third morning after Daniel's suspension, I was at home sorting through documents to apply for the accountant position. The commune had announced that reviews would begin next Monday, so I needed to organize my return certificate and education records. Suddenly, a loud furious pounding shook the door, so heavy it sounded like it might break. When I opened it, Vivian stood there. Her hair was a tangled mess and there were bloodstains on her new floral coat. Her face was twisted with rage, all her former pride gone. Before I could speak, she shoved past me, stormed into the house, and jabbed a finger in my face. Lisa, was it you who went to the regiment and ratted us out? Because of you, Daniel got suspended and my job fell through. What the hell is your problem? I shut the door behind us and looked at her coolly. What I reported was the truth. Daniel committed adultery, broke his promises, and abused his position. The suspension was deserved. As for your job, if you didn't qualify, that's on you. What does that have to do with me? Didn't qualify? Vivian gave a cold laugh, resting her hand on her belly. I'm carrying Daniel's child. He's the regiment commander. How could I not qualify? If it weren't for you meddling, I'd already be working as an accountant at the factory. Regiment commander? I pulled out the official suspension notice from my drawer and laid it in front of her. Haven't you heard? Daniel Chen's command position has already been suspended. He's just an ordinary officer now and he could be demoted next. Do you really think a man in his position can still pull strings for you? Vivian's eyes widened as she saw the official seal on the document. Her face turned pale and her voice trembled. That's impossible. Daniel told me it was only temporary, that he'd be reinstated soon. You're lying. Am I? I stepped closer, my voice sharp as ice. You can go to the regiment and ask for yourself. And tell me, Vivian, do you really think Daniel ever wanted to help you out of love? He only wanted to give the child in your belly a name, I said coldly. But now that he can't even protect himself, do you really think he's still going to care about you? Vivian's expression faltered. She was clearly shaken, but still tried to keep up her front. You're lying. Daniel treats me really well. He buys me malted milk and new clothes. How could he not care about me? Malted milk and new clothes? I sneered, pulling out the photo. He used the money that was supposed to be my compensation for those things. That money was meant for me and my child's living expenses, but he spent it on flattering you, his mistress. Does it feel good to spend it knowing that? I took a step closer, my voice low and cutting. And you, an unmarried woman, pregnant with another man's child, barging into someone else's home and throwing a tantrum. Aren't you afraid word will spread and no one will ever want you again? Shut up. Vivian snapped, her composure finally cracking. Her face twisted with rage as she lunged at me, trying to snatch the photo from my hand. I won't let you talk about me like that. Daniel and I truly love each other. We're not what you think. I sidestepped her easily, and just then I heard footsteps outside the door. When I opened it, Mrs. Zhang and a few neighbors were standing there. They heard the shouting and had come to check. The moment Mrs. Zhang saw Vivian inside my home, she frowned deeply. Vivian Lee, what are you doing here causing trouble? Did Lisa do anything to provoke you? I wasn't causing trouble. She started it, Vivian stammered, her tone weakening when faced with the neighbors. Started it? Sister Lee pointed at Vivian's swollen belly, her voice sharp. You're carrying another man's child. You broke up Lisa's marriage, and now you come here to provoke her? Who's bullying who here? We all see it clearly. You're nothing but a shameless homewrecker. The other neighbors chimed in immediately. Exactly. She's the one who did wrong, and now she has the nerve to blame someone else? Unbelievable. Get her out of here. She's disturbing Lisa. Vivian's face turned bright red under their scolding. Afraid that arguing further would hurt her pregnancy, she clutched her belly as tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't mean for things to be like this. Daniel lied to me. He said he'd marry me. Now I know I was fooled, but it's too late. I looked at her coldly. If you still have any sense of shame, you'll leave now and never come back. Stop pestering me, and stop clinging to Daniel Chen. Otherwise, I'll paste this photo right at the regiment gate and let everyone see who you really are. Vivian's eyes darted from the photo in my hand to the furious faces of the neighbors. Fear finally overtook her. Covering her face, she burst into tears and ran home, forgetting even her coat. The neighbors watched her retreating figure, whispering among themselves. Every one of them said the same thing, that she deserved it, that it was karma catching up to her. Mrs. Zhang came up and patted my shoulder gently. Lisa, don't waste your anger on her. People like that aren't worth it. I nodded, calm inside. Vivian's outburst was nothing more than the desperate struggle of someone cornered. With Daniel suspended and her job gone, her life would only get harder from here. That night, as I was knitting a sweater for my child, I suddenly heard shouting from next door, Daniel's home. Vivian's sobs and Daniel's furious yelling echoed through the wall. I could make out fragments like, "You promised me. My job's gone. What about me and the baby now?" My mother sighed. She brought this on herself. She could have lived a decent life, but she chose to be a mistress. Now look at her. Serves her right. I didn't reply. I only knitted faster, the needles clicking steadily in my hands. I knew the conflict between Daniel Chen and Vivian Lee was only beginning. They had destroyed someone else's family for their selfish desires. Now they were finally starting to pay the price. Over the next few days, the sound of arguments from next door never stopped. Sometimes I even heard Vivian crying and saying she wanted to go back to her hometown. Sometimes it was Daniel yelling at Vivian, calling her unreasonable. The neighbors in the compound saw and heard everything. No one pitied them. Everyone thought they were getting exactly what they deserved. A week later, the commune began reviewing applications for the accounting position. I brought my neatly prepared materials to the office, and as fate would have it, ran right into Daniel Chen and Vivian Lee. Vivian's eyes were full of resentment when she saw me, but she didn't dare say a word. She simply shrank behind Daniel's back like a coward. Daniel, his head lowered, pretended not to see me and quickly led her away. The clerk reviewing applications looked through my paperwork, and after hearing a bit about my situation, smiled warmly. Your documents are complete, and you meet all the requirements. We'll be giving you priority consideration. I thanked her, relief flooding through me. The accounting job was practically secured. Soon, I'd be able to support my child on my own, without relying on anyone ever again. The day the confirmation came through, I was in the courtyard with my son building a snowman. He'd only recently returned from the countryside, and everything in the city was still new to him. His little hands were red from the cold, but his laughter never stopped. Mrs. Zhang came over carrying a bag of apples and beamed at me. Lisa, congratulations. Everyone's talking about it. The commune said you'll start work at the factory next week. You'll be an official worker now. It's all thanks to you and the others helping me, I said, taking the apples, my heart full of gratitude. Just as we were chatting, Daniel appeared at the gate holding 2 bags of milk powder. His eyes flickered uncertainly when he saw us. He hesitated until Mrs. Zhang left, then finally walked over, his voice awkwardly polite. Lisa, I heard you got the accountant job at the factory. That's great, really great. He held out the milk powder. This is for the child. City kids drink this. It's good for nutrition. My son saw him and immediately hid behind me, whispering, Mama, I don't want his stuff. I patted his head gently, then pushed the milk powder back toward Daniel. No need. My child is taken care of. We don't need this. If you have spare time, maybe think about how to fix your own mess instead. Daniel froze, the milk powder still in his hand, an embarrassed look creeping across his face. After a long silence, he finally spoke. Lisa, I know I wronged you before. Lately, Vivian and we've been fighting constantly. She yells every day saying I'm useless, that I couldn't even get her a job, that I've ruined her life. She even threatened to get rid of the baby. His tone softened, almost pleading. Lisa, let's remarry for the sake of the child, for our family. I promise I'll treat you and the child right this time. I'll never see Vivian again. I couldn't help but laugh. Now he remembered how good I was. Back when he forced me to divorce him and paraded around in love with Vivian, did he ever think about our family? About our child? Daniel, I said coldly, do you really think I'm still the same woman who'd forgive you just because you said a few soft words? My smile faded, and my voice hardened. Let me make it clear. It's impossible. I have a job now. I can raise my child. We're doing just fine without you. You and Vivian made your choices, and you'll live with the consequences. Don't use the child as an excuse. I'm not making excuses, Daniel protested, stepping forward as if to grab my hand. I mean it, Lisa. I really regret it. Vivian's nothing like you. She asks for money every day, complains about my suspension, says I've ruined her future. I'm miserable with her. Lisa, can't we start over? Your misery has nothing to do with me. I stepped back, putting distance between us. You should have thought about this when you betrayed your marriage. Now that you've lost everything, you come crawling back? It's too late, Daniel. You need to leave. Don't let the child see you. Go away. Daniel tried to say something more, but my mother came out of the house holding freshly washed clothes and flung a furious look at him. Daniel Chen, how dare you show your face here? You were the one who wanted a divorce to marry that other woman, and now that she thinks you're useless, you want to come crawling back to Lisa? Lisa isn't the same soft target she used to be. Get out of here and stop being an eyesore. Daniel's face flushed red then white as my mother berated him. He stood frozen for a long moment, then could only walk away with the milk powder under his arm, looking utterly dejected. Watching him go, I felt nothing. His disgrace was of his own making. That night, after I had just put the child to bed, I heard a fierce argument downstairs. Through the window, I could see Daniel and Vivian. Vivian, clutching her belly, pointed and screamed in his face. Daniel, you're a useless coward. How many times did I tell you to beg the commissar to reinstate your post? You still haven't managed it. My belly's getting bigger. How am I supposed to get a job and support this child? I told you so many times, but the commissar won't listen to me. Daniel grew frantic, his voice rising. What can I do now? I want my post back, too, but the army has discipline. You think I want to be suspended? Vivian started crying, the sound full of despair. I followed you because I thought you were a regiment commander and could give me a good life. Now you're just an ordinary officer who can't even get me a job. What's the point of staying with you? I won't have this child. I'll go home tomorrow and have it aborted. Don't you dare try to abort it, Daniel shouted, grabbing her arm. This is my child. How can you say you'll just kill your own baby? Vivian shook him off and sneered. You promised you'd marry me and give me a name. Now I don't even have a proper job, and people point at me every day. Why should I give you a child? She turned and ran out of the compound, Daniel chasing after her. They tussled in the snow and fell, and Vivian sat on the ground clutching her belly, sobbing and cursing. You're a liar. I'll never forgive you. The neighbors were woken by the commotion and crowded to the windows to watch. Mrs. Zhang called down from above. Daniel, let her go. She's pregnant. If something happens to her, can you take responsibility? Only then did Daniel release his grip. He looked white and helpless, not knowing what to do. Soon Vivian's brother arrived on a bicycle. Seeing his sister on the ground, he flew into a rage and punched Daniel on the spot. Daniel Chen, I can't believe I introduced my sister to you. If you bully her again, I won't let it go. He helped Vivian up as she cried. Brother, I'm done with him. I'm going home to get the abortion and never see him again. As they left, her brother glared at Daniel and warned, We're not finished. I'll report you to the regiment and make you pay for what you did. Daniel stood in the snow like a deflated balloon, trembling all over as he watched them go. After a while, the neighbors closed their windows and whispered among themselves. My mother sighed, what a mess. How did two people turn out like this? I watched Daniel Chen standing alone downstairs and felt not a shred of sympathy. He had betrayed our marriage for selfish reasons, hurt me and our child, and this miserable outcome was exactly what he deserved. There's no medicine for regret in this world. People must pay for their own mistakes. The next morning, I heard that Vivian had gone back to her hometown with her brother. Daniel chased after her but couldn't catch up. When he came back, he was completely wilted and didn't even leave the house. Everyone in the compound said he was reaping what he'd sown. He threw away a good life for an affair, and now not only had his post been taken, he might lose his girlfriend and the child, too. Serves him right. I had no time to worry about him. I was focused on reporting to the factory. I bought a new school bag for my son and planned to enroll him in the nearby primary school next week. Seasons passed, and in the blink of an eye, a year went by. The accountant job at the factory went far more smoothly than I had imagined. Using the accounting knowledge I'd taught myself in my previous life and a diligent attitude, I not only got the hang of the work quickly, but was named an exemplary worker by year's end and promoted to accounting supervisor. My salary more than doubled. With the money I'd saved, I bought a used bicycle and rode my son to school every morning and picked him up each evening. Life was full and steady. My son adapted well to elementary school and consistently performed near the top of his class. At parent meetings, the teacher praised him as polite and bright. One day, he came home with a perfect score test and proudly said, Mama, the teacher said I can get into university one day. When I grow up, I'll earn money to take care of you so you don't have to work so hard. I held him and couldn't stop the tears. In this life, I had finally given my child a happy, stable childhood. No fights, no humiliation, only love and safety. One afternoon, I left early from work to buy fabric at the supply and marketing co-op to make my son a new padded coat. Just as I reached the co-op entrance, I saw a familiar figure, Daniel Chen. He wore a faded ordinary soldier's uniform. The regimental commander's insignia was gone from his shoulders long ago. He carried a shabby cloth bag and was standing by the roadside sweeping. He'd lost a lot of weight. His face was haggard and his hair had gone noticeably gray. Completely stripped of his previous vigor. I'd heard that after Vivian returned home, she'd actually had an abortion and then spread the word that Daniel was a liar and coward. Vivian's brother hadn't let him off either. He'd reported Daniel to the regiment and together with other comrades, raised concerns about Daniel's conduct. In the end, the army demoted Daniel to an ordinary soldier and posted him to a border outpost, cutting his monthly pay to half and ordering him to provide Vivian with an abortion fee. This time, Daniel was home on leave from the outpost. The regiment had him cleaning the compound nearby as a form of atonement. People passing by pointed and whispered, "Isn't that the former regiment commander? How did he end up sweeping the street?" some said. "Serves him right for having an affair and abandoning his family," others muttered. Hearing those comments, Daniel bowed his head lower, gripping the broom so tightly his face flushed, but he didn't dare say a word. He probably noticed me and averted his eyes, pretending not to see me and sweeping faster. I didn't go over to speak to him. I walked away silently. Seeing him reduced to this didn't bring me joy, only a quiet sense that everything had settled into its rightful place. He had paid for his betrayal and selfishness, and I had finally shaken off the shadow of the past and begun the life I wanted. A few more months passed. I went down to the countryside to bring my mother back to the city and happened to hear news about Vivian. Word had it her reputation was completely ruined. No one dared marry her, and she had to stay in the village living off her parents. The girls who used to hang out with her avoided her now, and the villagers whispered that she had no shame for wrecking another family. I heard that she even tried to find a man willing to marry her despite her past. People didn't want anything to do with her once they knew her story. Now she could only help her parents farm every day, living a very unhappy life. My mother sighed, "A pitiable person often has something hateful about them. If she'd married a decent man in the first place, she wouldn't have ended up like this." I nodded but felt no sympathy. He chose his own road. He sacrificed someone else's family for greed, and the outcome he got was what he deserved. There's no cure for regret. Everyone must pay for their own mistakes. Back in the city, I cleaned the house, made a room ready for my mother, and that evening, the three of us sat under the lamp eating together. My son piled an extra helping on my plate and said with a grin, "Mama, the food is so good today. Now that Grandma's here, our home feels even livelier." My mother smiled and said, "Yes, now I can see my grandson every day and help out. Then you can take it easier." Looking at that warm scene, my heart filled with happiness and steadiness. In this life, I no longer circled around marriage or made myself suffer for someone unworthy. I used my own hands to earn a living and gave my family a stable future. One morning as I walked my son to school, I saw Daniel sweeping by the roadside again. He still wore that old uniform, only thinner now and a little stooped. My son tugged my hand and asked softly, "Mama, is that the man who used to be my dad?" I stroked his head and answered gently, "Yes, but he's not part of our life anymore. We'll live well. Things will only get better." My son nodded uncertainly, pulled my hand, and skipped off.